Hello everyone, it's GigaBeef here, and today we're going to talk about how to get out of a slump in Escape from Tarkov. Now, this topic is particularly relevant as I have literally just gone through one myself, and honestly, it really is quite a brutal experience, but how you deal with it on the recovery is what matters. They do happen to everyone, and you do see even players who are very good at the game feeling beaten down and broken at times. So it goes without saying that occasionally you just have a bad time in Tarkov. Losing gear, dying without seeing people, struggling to learn anything whilst beginning to get really frustrated often tends to be the start of this process. Sometimes a specific quest with certain painful requirements can be the catalyst, which makes you try to rush it faster and get it done, but it ends up taking longer because of dying multiple times in a row. In my case, this was Punisher 6 that I had to park for a good week or so before returning back to it. One of the biggest problems with all of this is when you lose in other games it can be annoying, but it never matters for too long, whereas in Tarkov we have something real at stake. Our gear matters because it represents the work required to get it back, which doesn't take zero time. Usually this is associated with gear fear, and some players definitely do have this, especially those who are newer to the game, which is totally understandable by the way, when you haven't entirely figured out the strategy for making money consistently. But I think that in general, this isn't quite the right way to put it. Even if you don't care about your gear per se, what can get frustrating is the feeling of lost progression, especially if you're working towards targets in the hideout, for example. Working on solar power, Bitcoin 3 and max hideout simply for completionism is the goal of quite a few players and takes an incredible amount of money to do so. Donating kits to strangers online only makes it feel as if these goals are getting further away, hence the frustration. So here comes the first tip when getting absolutely slammed in EFT. Start playing your scav more often. For money making, playing scav is great anyway, but the free life, so to speak, allows you to ease back into raids without the same level of anxiety that comes from previous confidence that is now beaten down by 3 days of head eyes. Use your scav to start making money back, and even just seeing the ruble count start to increase can have a really good psychological impact on your whole outlook. As it's not possible to lose money there, with the worst case getting shot by another player scav, visit back to your favourite quick loot spots, be it woods, reserve, interchange, or even lighthouse in this wipe. Take that ruble count higher and use that money to make you feel better about your PMC raids afterwards. Running straight through factory with your starting equipment is a favourite of mine for pure money efficiency because it's just so damn fast. But this doesn't really fix anything. Money is a great help in alleviating stress, but you're still going to actually have to survive some PMC raids to get back into the swing of things. When you're ready to go and play some non-scav raids, head back to your maps of comfort. The idea here is to just get a survive first off, even if it means getting literally nothing else done otherwise. Forget the quests, put them on the back burner. When you get into raid, take the routes that you know intimately that are also mostly safe, and bring a kit that you're familiar with that is efficient and cheap to minimize any further frustration. I have a route through customs that I generally take when I have a lot of valuable loot and don't want to meet anyone, with which I'll load into a raid and make my way along, taking my time through the whole raid instead. We just want to get a survive here and maybe a scav kill or two if they happen to be in the way along our path. Alternatively, Factory is not a map for everybody, but personally I find extremely low budget runs there quite fun. Flechette shotguns, the Kedda B, pistols, VPO 215 Bolty APN runs, really anything that takes your fancy that costs next to nothing and gives you the chance of killing somebody. When you die on Factory, it's generally in an extremely quick way, and with a simple kit, the gearing up for the next run is also next to nothing. Losing less in time is just as important mentally as the money sometimes. Now we've got a couple of survives under our belt on our favourite maps, it's time to get back to basics. Intermediate players are particularly at risk of taking the maps they know for granted and loosening on the basic rules that they tried to learn as absolute beginners. The rules are the same as always, but sometimes it's good to take a step back and get a reminder. Take a second look at the areas you're going through before you move across. Where are the angles? Where might opponents be? Stick to good cover and concealment. Where will you go if you get shot at? How about now? And how about now? Plan your immediate route using trees and bushes to block sightlines, and rocks and other cover at least nearby for somewhere to go if the need arises, and don't get complacent. Part of this can be to slow down your gameplay. This doesn't mean crouch walking around the map, as this is a surefire way to get shot in the head, but stop running around as much, especially in areas where others might be and could hear you first if they're there. Take your time when you move, and listen when you're stationary but hidden. We all know that the beginning of a raid can be total bedlam due to the spawns. It's not a bad tactic if you're avoiding hotspots, quests and PvP to let other PMCs push through first and allow the raid to become less formulaic from the first couple of minutes. After this, then move out and do what you need to do. As we've said before, a boring survive raid can be the first step to breaking the cycle of deaths. Even if you're not having a bad time in game, plenty of quests are much easier later on into the raid when all the PMCs have left. For the sake of progression, it is absolutely valid to take some food and water, park yourself in a bush, and come back 25 minutes later, have a picnic, and then get started. It's not an interesting way to play in the moment, sure, but if you have something else to do outside of the game, then it can be really efficient with your real lifetime, which I value very much. Tarkov is as much a psychological game as it is anything else. Frustration and anger are the result of a great range of emotional responses that we get from the game, both for good and bad. But ultimately, what this means is that if you're getting to the point where your play is seriously degrading because of your emotional state, sometimes the absolute best thing to do is just take a break and try again tomorrow. The unfortunate circumstance that I referenced in a previous video about ammo caused me to do just that, accidentally running PMC Night Factory rather than Scav Night Factory, which I was doing to test the viability of looting the crates, meant that I loaded in with no NVGs or flashlight, multiple weapons with no sights including my Meta AK-74N, a suppressed P90, an MP7, all of my 7N40 rounds at the time, and 120 rounds of Igolnik. Oh, and did I mention no factory key either? So of course I promptly died at gate 3, and I wasn't even angry, just sad, so I stopped playing for the night before jumping on again and getting back to it the following day. Slumps in Tarkov do suck, but they do end. Hopefully today's video helps any of you that are struggling to shortcut the pain slightly and at least have someone to commiserate with. But at the end of the day, your suffering is guaranteed. That is what we signed up for. So as usual, please consider dropping a like and a comment. To see when I'm streaming, you can follow me on Twitter and Twitch. Check out our ScavTalk podcast in the links below, and with all that said, I'll see you next time, and as always, try to have fun in your raids.